Hello, welcome to our news roundup for the 12th of July week ending. And first of all, Scottish news. Kier was here. We'll finish up today's programme with some important news from Europe. Srebrenica Remembrance Day yesterday. But Sir Kier Starmer has made his first official visit to Scotland. He met First Minister John Swinney in Edinburgh the other day. And the two agreed to cooperate on shared priorities, eradicating child poverty, going for economic growth, and making progress towards net zero CO2 targets, and finally to improving the delivery of public services. The First Minister congratulated Sir Kier on his appointment to a very demanding job and looked forward to a productive relationship based on renewed respect for devolved institutions. Also at the meeting was Ian Murray, MP for Edinburgh South, who is now the Scottish Secretary. As he now has the UK government behind him, will Mr Murray actually be stronger than the Scottish government? For example, UK Labour wants to develop a new type of nuclear power plant, which the Scottish government doesn't support. So will Mr Murray use the Scottish office to force nuclear on an unwilling Scotland? So let's see how that respect agenda evolves over the coming months. Okay, next, a story on improving healthcare in Scotland. The Chief Medical Officer, Dr Gregor Smith, has assembled a team to look at the CAS report into gender healthcare in England and to report on how that could be implemented, if at all, in Scotland. For gender-distressed young patients, the team has agreed that each young person needs a senior clinician in charge of their care, preferably a consultant, and that the patient's physical and mental health need to be fully assessed in a fully rounded way. Like other countries, Scotland will pause the use of puberty blockers until more evidence on their benefits and risks can be gathered. Scotland will join in the wider UK study on whether puberty blockers are an effective and safe treatment. Neil Gray, Scotland's Health Minister, said that the Scottish Government will read the team's report and inform Parliament on its recommendations once the summer recess is over. The Parliament meets again from the 2nd of September. And now a story this week from the Scottish Government on strategy to integrate new Scots into the community. Scotland has a proud history of welcoming those fleeing war and persecution, and we are dedicated to helping them integrate into communities from the day they arrive. Those are the words of MSP Cock Stewart, Scotland's Equality Minister. And this week the Scottish Government published its plan to welcome people from all the airts who chose to make Scotland their home. And the plan both stresses the need for new Scots to understand their rights and responsibilities as citizens, but also recognises their desire to hold on to their old culture and pass that on to their children. One desired outcome of the plan is for existing communities in Scotland to understand why new Scots have come here and to appreciate that Scotland is stronger if its culture and community reflect diversity. The plan has been developed jointly by COSLA, the Scottish Government and by the Scottish Refugee Council. The key aim in Outcome 1 is to ensure that new Scots live in safe and welcoming, inclusive communities where everybody's dignity is respected and is able to build diverse relationships and healthy intercultural bonds. More information on the Scottish Government website. Now, Ayers Water. We reported last week on bathing water quality. The story we gave you last week was that bacteria levels, both at the heads of Ayr on the Clyde coast and at Fisher Sands in the east coast, had made the waters unsafe for bathing. This week, the Environmental Protection Agency, SEPA, has announced that levels are back to normal. There's no longer any risk to the public. SEPA staff have been taking water samples since last week and are now happy that bacteria levels are at a safe level. SEPA routinely takes samples from 80 designated bathing sites around Scotland where bathing water is generally very good. Now, it's the economy, stupid, as everyone knows. FDI, or foreign direct investment, is just one of the key indicators of an economy's health, and in Scotland it's looking quite healthy. FDI means investors from outside an economy taking a stake in firms there because they see that as a safe investment. And new figures show that a record number of FDI schemes were signed off in Scotland last year. That's 142 projects, which is 13% up on the year before. Scotland has a higher share of UK's FDI than any region outside London, with 14.4% of UK's inward investment coming here, where we have 9% of our population. And this is also the ninth year in a row where Scotland's performance has beaten the English regions. Workforce skills and access to new technology were cited as the key reasons for Scotland's suitability as a place to trust with your money. 3 of the UK's top 10 FDI destinations are in Scotland. That's Edinburgh, Glasgow and Aberdeen. Our foreign investors mainly come from America, Germany and France, with a lot of funds going into projects connected with new low-carbon high-tech industries. And now a weird decision I've just heard about today from Glasgow City Council to force the closure of a popular local food business. Locavore is a growing food and distribution CIC based in Glasgow. They grow vegetables both at the farm near Neilston in Renfrewshire and at the nursery and greenhouse in Belhouston Park, Glasgow. They sell the produce locally through 2 shops, one is in Partick and the other one in Glasgow's south side. This not-for-profit company, which also sells veg boxes, were recently awarded a grant of $50,000 by the City of Glasgow to develop the Belhouston site. It's hard therefore to understand why the same City Council has this week announced that Locavore has a notice to quit. They have to get out of their urban farm by the 31st of this month. Ruben Chesters, the founder of Locavore, said that the closure of their nurseries will mean that Locavore will have to shut down, with the loss of 80 jobs and of tons of tomatoes, cucumbers, beans and kale due to be harvested in a few weeks' time. The Belhouston site hosts 120 community growing plots and is a centre for the veg box side of the business, which serves 2,000 Glasgow households. It's also the city's only organic farm. It's thought that maybe earlier financial difficulties facing Locavore may have led one department in the City Council to feel that the project wasn't worth supporting, while another department was awarding them a grant. Earlier this year, Locavore CIC had to close and the business was taken over by the Chard Holdings Group, which is also a CIC. The original lease to Locavore ran until 2062 and staff assumed that the lease would be continued. There is a petition to persuade the City Council to withdraw the eviction notice, and we'll put a link to that in the comments below the YouTube section. The slogan for Scotland's leading city is "Let Glasgow Flourish." So do it then. Now, we're talking about CICs. News for Scotland is also one of these. What is it? It's a community interest company, in other words, a not-for-profit organisation. We are a new start-up, and we're here to bring you the news which you might not hear over the standard news services. And we want to expand. We have plans for wider news coverage with interviews, deep dive investigations and shorts and all sorts of other things. In fact, we're working on a couple of special features. Now, we'd like to produce more bulletins on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, etc. But what's holding us back is lack of time. We're asking for your help there. If you like what we're doing, could you please hit the subscribe button, which if you're watching on YouTube, you'll find that at the bottom of the page. And if you're listening, please pass us on to your friends through your social media. It really does make a difference to us if we can grow our audience and our subscribers list. We've also launched a fundraiser that's on the GoFundMe site. We'd like to employ journalists so that we can tell more of Scotland's stories, and we will do that as soon as the income is high enough. Scotland has a huge decision to make in the Parliament elections of 2026, now just 22 months away, and we think the country needs a vibrant and diverse new media to reflect the debates that we will have on Scotland's place in the world. So please consider contributing, and thanks for watching and listening so far. Okay, on with the news again. COVID is back. In fact, it's probably never gone away. I myself, however, was surprised when about 5 weeks ago I felt a bit unwell and I saw my COVID test go straight to red in about half a second. Since then, I've heard of several others catching that pernicious virus. So what do the government's official figures tell us? Well, first of all, by the 7th of this month, there were 459 people in Scotland's hospitals with COVID, and that's 22 for every 100,000 of the population. For comparison, at the peak of COVID a couple of years ago, it was 500 per 100,000. So current numbers are very small, but at the moment the numbers are higher than they were last winter. Health experts have been tracking the new variant, which is a variation of the JN1 variant, which itself is a subvariant of the Omicron strain. Infection figures are not being collected as they were during the pandemic, so we don't really know how many have COVID, but public health experts are not alarmed at the moment. So what do you do if you are positive? That's assuming you still have a testing kit. They're no longer available for free unless you're in a vulnerable group. But if you think you have COVID, the Scottish Government asks you to stay at home. If you have to go out, you should wear a mask or you're simply spreading it around. Hygiene and fresh air are our friends, so wash your hands regularly and meet in well-ventilated spaces. More information is on the Public Health Scotland COVID-19 dashboard, and again, I'll put that below the YouTube edition. Now let's turn to mainland Europe with story of the heatwave. No, this is not fake news. There actually is a heatwave in the southern half of our continent. They're sweltering, while the northern half is a bit like Scotland, on the cool side. The French government, in fact, is today telling construction workers that they can go home early if it's too hot, with pay, rather than work in unsafe temperatures. Studies show that productivity begins to fall off once the thermometer passes 32 degrees, and it goes down by more than half if the temperature exceeds 40 degrees. Last month, Romania also sent workers home due to the heat, and in Spain, a new predictive tool has been developed to forewarn where the deadly heat wave will be worst. Forecaster.health, a system designed in Barcelona, combines weather forecasts with population data to estimate the likely mortality from serious heat events. Around 70,000 people died in the summer of 22 in Europe due to excessive heat. Meanwhile here, heat waves are less of a problem, and it's not just in Scotland. The maps show a two-temperature Europe, with most of Great Britain, Ireland, Denmark and the other Scandinavian countries and parts of northern France relatively cool, while temperatures really shoot up just a bit below and to the east of that line. Belgium in June suffered flooding as 1 month rain fell in just 1 week, and that followed 9 months of above average rainfall in the country. Globally, however, the European Union's Copernicus satellite system shows a continued rise in temperatures. June was the hottest since June was invented, at 1.64 degrees above the pre-industrial average. These extremes are hurting the economy too. Northern Europeans may like to go south for the sun, but enough is enough. The number of tourists heading to the south of Europe has actually fallen 10% just since 2022. And the organisers of the Olympics just about to start in Paris are getting worried. Portable aircon units may have to be brought in to keep the athletes cool. And now finally, our top story is Srebrenica, mass murder 1995. We will remember them. Yes, it was on the 11th of July in 1995 when Bosnian Serb troops overran the UN's intended safe zone and separated the men and teenage boys from their wives and mothers. The males, about 7,000, were taken away and killed. Their remains were buried in mass graves. Now, the United Nations recognises this was an act of genocide and recently agreed to a proposal tabled by Germany and Rwanda to hold the 11th of July each year as a day of remembrance. This year, again, Bosnian's forensic teams have been identifying human remains so that relatives can finally say goodbye to their murdered family members. Harjudin Mesic is one of the few who managed to escape the Serbian machine guns, and he told Bosnia's N1 News that his brothers and companions were not so fortunate. He spoke of a Serbian soldier entering the camp, putting his bayonet to the throat of one of the young men, saying the Serbs were not there to negotiate, but to finish the Bosniaks off once and for all. Harjudin made his escape across hard terrain, avoiding ambush as he knew the land well. Out of the 12, 3 were killed, and 1 died from his wounds. One astonishing characteristic of the murderers, according to Mr. Mesic, is the fact that they were all ordinary educated professionals, and that many of the murders and rapes took place in schools, cultural centres and gyms. The German diplomat to the Western Balkans, Manuel Serrazin, has said that the German government wants the truth about the massacres to be told, but does not want to label the whole of Serbia as guilty of genocide. We want, he said, to remember the victims and call for justice, adding that Germany wants Bosnia to remain as one single state, but with 2 entities inside it, rejecting the moves by Serbian leader Milorad Dodik to set up a breakaway Serbian entity. More about that is on Bosnia's N1 News, and in Scotland it's also on Broadcasting Scotland, available on YouTube. Okay, that's it for News for Scotland this week. We'll carry on working on those special features I mentioned, and we'll get them out as soon as we can. It's news for we are. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back soon.